evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here on Business Today.
Evening. Thank you for having us.
Good evening, Timo.
Dr. Kudumo, I would like to start with you by taking us through as to what exactly is going on with President Trump's foreign policy, and did this come as a surprise?
I think it's important for us to understand that foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. And President Trump has made very clear his pronouncements. America first, making America great again. It has not come as a surprise because this policy is a thought-through policy. There are people who have actually gone through, do some work for us to arrive at where we are. So in terms of analyzing, explaining it, and describing it, it is about America first and making America great again. Anything that does not fit into that, it's not part of that foreign policy. So it's more about disrupting the norm that we know, but disrupting so that he can advance the interests of the United States of America. So it's not a surprise if we can look into what foreign policy is all about, and also the theory that informs foreign policy in the United States. We call it the realism theory, and it's based on the principle underpinning that the world outside there is a disorder. It's only the strong one that will survive. If necessary, use force to advance your interests. That's basically, it's taking the realism theory to the extreme.
Interesting. Mali, before we go into the specifics, talk to us as to how has the economic contribution of the U.S. has been to America, and the current administration foreign policy, how is it going to shape or to reshape the global economy, specifically for small and vulnerable economies such as Namibia?
Thank you very much. Like Doc have said, what is currently happening in the U.S. have got the potential to disrupt many things as we know them. And one of the areas that will definitely be interrupted and we are going to see a shift is the economic policy of the world. America being a very important player in the global economy, whatever decision they take has got an implication to the entire world, and especially for smaller economies like Namibia. We know that America's influence in the global economy, from the economic point of view, has been quite profound. America's economy to the African, especially the African continent, has been so profound in many, many areas, and its influence has been manifested in so many ways. One of them is through trade. We know that trade for Africa has been very much oriented towards America, and such that we are talking of Africa's development on the back of America's trade. Millions and millions upon millions on investment in infrastructure that has delivered and propelled economic growth, transfer of technology, education, skills, etc. We can name them. It is so important for Africa, and America has been at the forefront. Not only that, America's influence on Africa has also been manifested through aid. America has been a very important source of aid for Africa, and we know that because of capital deficit for Africa, America has really been able to provide a lot of aid that we have seen, which has made a positive impact on the livelihood of Africa. Not only that, the technological transfer and infrastructure development, which is a key pillar for economic growth for Africa, has always been coming from America. And so this is what we have seen for the past years. And now come in the new administration, their new policy, their new foreign policy is definitely going to threaten the way things have been. And this disruption will definitely disrupt the flow of trade. It will definitely, and it has already disrupted the flow of aid, which have so much negative implication for Africa. And we are monitoring to see where this is going, but we can already tell that it's not going to end well for countries like Africa, because we can already see and tell the implication it has on the recipient of this aid. Africa was not ready, in my view, for such a shift, but it is already here.
Talking of the readiness, later on in the show we'll discuss as to how African countries can improve their situation within their own economies, apart from depending on the US and other funders. Dr. Kudumo, we have seen South Africa and the US exchanging harsh words recently. What exactly is happening between these two countries and the seriousness of it in terms of diplomacy?
Yeah, in the diplomatic circles, what we see is not the underlying factors. What we see is a symptom of a deeper issue. Like in this case, that issue of America first and making America great again is also dealing with relations between states. And it's not the first time that we are seeing it. If you can remember September 11, President Bush then said, the axis of evil. You are either with us or against us. So you have to pronounce yourself whether you are with us or against us. So basically, what we are seeing in South Africa is a deeper issue of whom South Africa is aligning to, and the United States or President Trump's administration does not like that. Firstly is the issue of South Africa taking the issue to the International Court of Justice. Israel, who is an ally of the United States, they did not like that. And as we have explained, it's about disrupting systems. South Africa is now chairing the G20, bringing people together, shaping foreign policy, maybe like what we are talking about, not in the like of the United States. Remember that BRICS talk about having their own currency, and already by then, President Trump have given signals that he does not like that. So what you are seeing is, in terms of this realism theory and the carrot and stick diplomacy, saying you must be careful, we will come to you. And you start first with countries that are not that strong before you come to your enemy. So what I'm trying to say is, don't just look at it, Trump is talking to solidarity and this group and this group. There's a bigger scheme of how to disrupt things, both diplomatic relations as well as the economy. And you use fear. You reward and you punish, the carrot and stick diplomacy. So it's not a small thing, and it's not a South Africa-United States thing. Because if it becomes a pattern of the diplomacy, then it means everyone who is against us must be punished. And we'll see how it unfolds.
Because BRICS countries are on a quest to overthrow the dominance of the US dollar through what is called de-dollarization. Is that part of the main content of what Trump is trying to get to?
That is a threat. That is a threat because the bigger issue of this administration, when you look at it, is trade and the economy, and the other issue is security, especially who aligned with who in the world, and you have seen how it played out with Ukraine and so on. So he wants to have one global player who dictates geopolitical issues and the affairs of the world. But I think threatening the dollar is a major policy issue, and they want to deal with that and finish it off.
Mali, back to you again. The US has also withdrawn its funding for UNAIDS projects and others in Namibia. How devastating is this in terms of employment and the pressure this will put on our national budget, considering that government is already in a difficult financial situation, and especially when coming to paying for medicines or funding medicines that were funded by the US through UNAIDS and other projects. Is this not going to put our finances in more deeper trouble as a country?
Yeah, you're quite right. I think to even understand this even much better, we need to put context to it. So what is the current situation that Namibia is in, and why this development is a very important development for Namibia? Number one, Namibia is characterized by, of course, like you've said, lack of fund, deficit balance. Is also characterized by high unemployment. We are also seeing a lot of health and educational challenges in Namibia. And for the past years, we have seen the United States of America helping African countries, including Namibia, through the US aid. This initiative and many others that were aimed to help alleviate some of these challenges in Africa, including Namibia. The work of the US in Namibia has been manifested in the education sector. We can name a number of projects that have helped the country through technical assistance and direct financial assistance from the US through the USAID. The work in the health space from the USA through this initiative, UNAID and USAID. All of these have really helped to alleviate the financial challenges that government was facing in addressing and delivering these services. It allowed our government to free some funds to be used for other purposes because of this initiative. Now we have a situation, we have just come out from a crisis called COVID, where resources really ran out and we need more resources right now. And then comes this news to say that the United States of America is going to withdraw funding. It really puts too much pressure, unprecedented pressure on our budget. And we already know the ramification of this. We are going to see, and we have already seen since the announcement, a very good number of USAID workers, Namibian-based workers, who are now back at home without a job. That automatically adds to the unemployment rate that the country is having. We have a good number of Namibians that are on life support treatment that are funded by the USAID. Their lives are now in a predicament. And we have already also seen the depletion of aid and what it's doing to various other development programs. So to sum up really is to say that this is going to put too much pressure on our government if it is to come in and plug that hole. That hole is such a big hole that then this will force government to look at other ways, maybe engage in debt, engage in many other things just to close that gap, because the cost of not closing that gap is even worse. And so this development is a very, very crucial development for Namibia as far as development is concerned.
And the procurement of ARVs,
yes,
is very expensive.
Absolutely.
And now, before we were being funded by the US, and things were already difficult. But now having to procure our own ARVs, if the US is not to reconsider their decision and come back to our aid, how devastating is this?
Very much, because remember, we were already at the top of our inability to fund procurement of vital medicine like ARVs. And so with this withdrawal, it even makes it worse. If numbers are anything to go by, we have just recently seen that we were getting closer to winning the war against HIV/AIDS as a result of the support from the US through the US aid. And now with this withdrawal, it's an automatic reversal of that gain that we have just made. And so we are now facing a situation where there are other challenges that are compounding the financial crisis of this country. We are talking about drought. This is something that we cannot control. And so the number of competing challenges now that are all competing for that little budget that we have just grown. And this development is really nothing good to write home about.
Dr. Kudumo, moving back to the world of diplomacy, we have seen Donald Trump's administration reducing diplomacy protocols to social media announcements. Major decisions are now, or major diplomacy decisions or communications are now being announced through Twitter. How did we arrive to this point? Or is it maybe a new move in the world of technology, or is it concerning?
It is concerning because you have the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations that explains how states are supposed to relate to each other and how states are supposed to communicate and engage each other. Of course, technology have advanced, but still that convention is valid. The problem that you have now is if that is the dominant way of diplomacy, where are we going to end up? Because one of the things in diplomacy is this confidence and the trust that what I am telling you in confidence is between the two of us, between the two states. Now you are seeing that it is communicated either by media or social media or so. So for example, those that are studying international relations, everything that we have learned about international relations and interstate relations is being undone. I mean, if I'm asking my students about the Vienna Convention and how states relate to each other and how states communicate, they are going to ask me, but President Trump is not communicating according to what you are explaining. So it's not good for diplomacy. And also the element of some lack of respect in terms of how you engage another state, it's problematic and it's having, but you must also understand this thing of making America great again and what is in the interest of America is taking it to the extreme. The foreign policy and the diplomacy of the United States was always realism, but it is now being taken to the extreme. And also there are elements of bullying, the carrot and stick diplomacy. You either with us or against us is now being taken to the extreme. It's not good because now we must go and write new interstate relations and how states are supposed to relate to each other. And the worry is whether it is just populism and it will end, but when we look at the signs, I don't think it's going to end. It's going to go up.
And in the world of diplomacy, the main focus or the main attention is supposed to be given to countries, between countries, when they are discussing their issues. But we have seen recently the South African pressure group AfriForum, when they went to the US to have access to President Donald Trump. It was so easy for them to have access to him, but government officials from South Africa, they are being prevented from getting access to the Oval Office. What is this now when individual groups have more access to presidents or to countries, but countries themselves, through diplomats, are being blocked?
I think one of issue in diplomacy is sensitivity, whether it is political or cultural sensitivity. It's important, but we are not seeing it. And some people, to the extent, are asking the same question. Is it a race issue? Is it a new way how state relates or not? Because if everyone can have access to discuss state matters and who are not representatives of states, where are we going to? But I think what is important for us is to understand and explain and predict what are the implications of what is happening. We already explained that you have someone who wants to disrupt existing norms and the way of doing things. The issue is whether the world wants to accept that that is the norm or not. But to come to your question, it's unheard of that state matters are being discussed by people who are not representatives of the state. whether it is diplomats or whether it is the executive. What are the implications of that on interstate relations? But it's not something that we can encourage, because where are you deriving that mandate from to speak on behalf of the people and on behalf of the state if you are not in the organs of the state? But that's what we are seeing now.
And some people are even equating it to the act of treason.
Yeah, well, but you see, when you have someone, there is hypocrisy in international relations, because certain states do things that are not supposed to do, and we don't talk about it. The Israeli thing is a good example of that. Everyone, or the Ukraine and Russia is a good example of that. Everyone in Europe talk about that, but no one talk about the DRC or Sudan or this. So there are hypocrisy in the way how states behave in the international arena, and we can get an explanation why they are behaving like that. But we must not promote that as a norm. And I think one of the problems that you are having is you don't have global leaders who can speak on these issues. Like maybe your Mandela or Angela Merkel, when she was on as a chancellor, she can talk to any leader in the world. So it's also showing that there's a global leadership crisis. And therefore, one person can do whatever he or she wants to do, and there are no consequences.
I think if I can just quickly add on there, I think what we said in the beginning, the disruption, we can already see the implication of this disruption. If a president can communicate statements via Twitter, already it shows you that the power and the norm as we know it has already changed. It's no longer, it doesn't matter anymore. And this is being influenced and perpetuated by technology. With the current technology, a lot of things that we used to do in a traditional way can be done in a technological way, which seems really, really different from the norm. And we shouldn't be surprised, because if you look at the gentleman that is very close to Donald Trump, Mr. Elon Musk, is a tech guy. And some of these things, they're beginning to look normal even in the State House, because this is the guy that is behind all of this change. And we should expect a lot of more of these changes as we move forward, because this is the agenda, as Doctor was saying. This is not something that was sorted out yesterday. This has been planned for years, and they are just now implementing this plan. And with the use of technology, anything is possible.
The main concern, like Doctor has said, like school books, they need to be rewritten. You are coming from the academic world.
Absolutely.
Does it mean that now we are going to include Twitter and all those things in our textbooks when you are now teaching students, those that are studying diplomacy?
The norm now is online learning. And all of these things, the way you communicate to students via WhatsApp, via Twitter. All of these things are being integrated into our daily life, and we really need to find a way to balance this. But the whole idea of disrupting, you need to disrupt so that you can reorganize your power. So there is no way America will be great again if they do not disrupt the way things are done, because it's all about the balance of power, the new world order. So yes, school books. Some of the students now, if you say you must go and buy a textbook, they were like, for what? I can download a whole textbook on my tablet. And so all of these things, when it began, it was something very, very strange. Remember in the advent of COVID, when we were told that we'll be teaching, we'll be lecturing from our houses, we were like, but how? But the moment we got into the swing of things, it became normal, such that students now, they would prefer you teach them online, and they do well. So again, it's the balance of power that is shifting as a result of these disruptive agendas from the bigger powers.
Still remaining with you, Mali, should we get worried as Namibia from the economic perspective as a result of this diplomatic fallout between South Africa and Namibia? Does it have any economic or any potential of affecting our economy? And how likely is it going to boil down to Namibia, considering how Namibia and South Africa are linked, apart from the currency pegging the economic relation between the two. How serious is this? If South Africa is, let's say, facing possible sanctions, economic sanctions from America, how are we going to be affected as Namibia?
Absolutely, we need to be very concerned, because the implication of this, what is going on, it goes beyond economic implication. It goes beyond social implication. It goes beyond political implication. See, I hate to say this, but we are in a war. The other way of putting what is happening currently between America, the US, and China, it's best described as a trade war. It's a war. And in every war, there are casualties. Collateral damage. And most of this collateral damage are damages that happen to the objects that are in the line of fire. Unfortunately, Namibia is in the line of fire by virtue of us being the closest neighbor to South Africa, by virtue of us being the most closest to South Africa. And Namibia's voice on the global market gets amplified by South Africa. So like Doctor was saying, South Africa's move to go to the High Court to sue as a result Israel and Palestine, there is no way that can leave Namibia from it. So if South Africa is going to be punished because of that, Namibia definitely is also going to be punished. If South Africa's friendship with China, as manifested in the BRICS, is something that they are getting beaten for, Namibia will also get beaten for that. But to say it really loosely, there is serious implication to Namibia as a result of this war going on. And like I've said, Namibia as a collateral will suffer collateral damage because we are in the line of fire. If one was to enumerate the implication of this war, I think we can discuss that later. But definitely, whatever South Africa will face as a result of this war, Namibia will face even double that, because we have seen in the past that some of the heavy punches that South Africa received, Namibia received it a bit softer because South Africa has absorbed the whole impact. And when this happens, and if it brings South Africa down, Namibia is definitely also coming down by virtue of many of those arrangements you mentioned about the CMA. So all of these things makes Namibia and South Africa to be seen by the world over there in one lens.
Dr. Kudumo, back to you. It's like President Donald Trump has a bigger and serious plan for both Ukraine and South Africa. Can you briefly talk to us about that?
Look, everyone wants to end that war, but some of the scholars, specifically Professor Theo Venter, have explained the type of leadership that Donald Trump is. It's transactional. It's business. And therefore, he wants to end that war, but he must get something out of it. If you have to end it, you have to get something out of it. That's what you have seen playing itself out between the president of Ukraine and him. Because we must sign now. If we want, it's very clear. He's saying, I'm not Obama and I'm not Joe Biden. If you want me to help you, I must get something out of that. And I think that deal of signing did not move very fast. That's why you have seen exactly what is happening. And it's the same with South Africa, because if you look at how it started, you are treating some of your people. It did not mention, it did not say the whites, but it was supposed to say, you are treating the whites badly. But if he say that, then we can conclude that he's a racist. Then he just say, you are treating some of your people badly. You have to deal with that, otherwise I'm coming back to you. It's transactional. Deal with it, or otherwise I come back to you. So the issue now is whether the diplomacy must be based on bullying, or it is a mutual, cordial relationship. So obviously, that is the issue. And when you look at it also, because South Africa have invited the president of Ukraine, and when this war started, some African leaders, including the president of South Africa, visited some of these countries to see how to resolve the problem. Now, it is about global politics and global player. Maybe South Africa can resolve that problem, and then the United States is not getting credit for that. And therefore, you have to bully South Africa out to get the credit. So the point that we are trying to make is these are not simple things that we are seeing playing out there. These are shifting global politics and global relations, and they have implications on all of us. So especially in the case of Africa, you are supposed to be speaking with one voice on these matters, because it looks like it's selecting one country, deal with that one, and then you get to another one, and so on. So, but obviously, with the Ukraine war, what is in for us? If there's nothing for us and we spend a lot of money already, then we are not interested. But if there's something for us, then we can sign immediately. And it must be, because the rest of the world have failed to deal with this issue, it must be us who are solving it. So the issue of geopolitical interest and politics is coming to play. And Europe is also having their own challenges in this way. That's why you have this global player who want to take credit for solving all the problems. So making America great again means also we are the only country in the world that can solve global politics. And just look at how it is downplaying the United Nations and everyone else. So we are in for a ride in the global arena.
Because when South Africa decided to take Israel to the International Criminal Court, the US took it like they are known as the peacemakers of the world, and now their relevance is being overshadowed by South Africa, who is now taking major cases to the International Criminal Court. Did that maybe shake them like, no, you can't enter this space of being a peacemaker while we are here?
No, not really as such. You see, you have Israelis who are in the United States who are somehow influence the politics in the United States. If you observed clearly, during the elections, no one wanted to disrupt that relationship with Israel. And the Prime Minister of Israel was utilizing that opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say. But after the elections, the United States is coming out very strongly to make it clear we are for Israel. And if you follow the pronouncements that we make, the Palestinians must go out there and be accommodated by the other Arab states and this type of thing. So, but the issue of South Africa going to the court, it's a major grievance from the United States, because we have taken an ally of us to court, and we are going to deal with you, whether it is through trade or politics and so on. But the issue is now, where's Africa in this reconfiguration? You are not hearing the voice of Africa and saying, how are we analyzing, describing, and predicting the shifting of the global powers? And where is the position of Africa in this? That is the worrying issue for me.
We are running out of time, but finally, to the both of you, I want you to discuss the take-home message for Namibia as we watch all this unfolding. Doctor, from the diplomacy point of view, and Mali from the economic point of view. Let me start with you, Mali.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's a very, very important juncture where we are this year now in the global space. The approach of America, like Doctor was saying, to disrupt this global power, America is taking a position of selective target. You can say, to be politically vague, divide and rule. So they are picking one country, deal with it, say, put it aside and deal with it, you know, in that order. And South Africa, when it took Israel to the International Court, it presented a very good opportunity for America to target South Africa. So there's no question about it. That is a major grievance. What are the take-home? The take-home for me really is that we need to watch this space. We need to watch this development because of the serious implications this will have. A fallout from South Africa and America for Namibia will spell disaster. If America go ahead with imposing all of these tariffs, if this war intensifies, we are looking at a situation where there will be reduced export to the US for South Africa, and by implication for Namibia. That will be a reduction in our external resources, in our returns. There will be a serious issue for the exchange rate, to which Namibia is pegged to. If the exchange rate weakens, there will be serious implication with inflation. We are already battling with inflation. We can enumerate quite a number of them, but what must be done right now? Right now is not a time to sit back and plan. You can't plan in war. In war, you implement. We should have planned and made reservation for this already. But still, we can look at how we can make short-term impact, but not firefighting or haphazard solution. We need a robust solution. We need to see how, within this war, we can focus on areas that we have advantage of. Of course, Namibia's voice is not very strong without South Africa, but we have many other allies that we can combine and speak with one voice, like Doctor was saying. I think that for me is the starting point. And also, it's a very good lesson for our own policymakers. We shouldn't take things for granted. And we should learn from some of these things so that when we make policies going ahead, we should make contingent plans for fallouts such as this. We live in a global village, and the strongest one has a tendency to bully others. So for me, really, I think in as much as this seems like it came as a surprise, there are very, very good lessons that we can learn from the economic policies, political policies, so that we can be better prepared when something like this happens in future.
Doctor, your parting shots.
Yeah, I think international relations is about analyzing, describing, and predicting what is happening. I hope that we are doing that in Namibia, especially through our diplomatic missions, as well as the foreign relations officers in MIRCO, making sense out of what is happening and preparing ourselves. How do we navigate through this? And the second takeaway message for me is, in this global world where we seem to be equal, it is not true that all of us are equal. Self-reliance, solidarity, and partnerships are important. So let's not look at just watching what is happening, but let's analyze, predict, and prepare ourselves so that in case something happens, we are somehow self-reliant or we can manage the situation. And I appreciate this discussion because we are just looking at things happening without firstly understanding them, then secondly preparing, predicting how to handle it. So that is my takeaway message. Let's not see things happening. These things are thought through. It is a strategy. It is a plan. How do we respond to it?
Dr. Kudumo, Mr. Likukela, thank you so much for joining us here on Business Today as we keep watching this unfolding. And if need be, if it escalates, we'll bring you back to the studio so that we take it further and brief the Namibian nation as to what is happening, how economically we are affected, and from the diplomatic point of view. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.